You accused your Republican colleague, Lauren Boebert, on the House floor of stealing or copying your impeach Biden resolution, and then called her a nasty little bitch. And I only use that word because you've confirmed it. Is this the media loving a cat fight? Because you haven't exactly shied away from this.
Well, you know, I find it unfortunate that Lauren Boebert leaked that conversation that we had to the press. But once she leaked it out, I had to confirm that that's in fact what I said. But here's the real issue. I've introduced articles of impeachment, and each time I do so, along with my other bills, I communicate with all of my Republican colleagues and ask for support by asking their co-sponsorship, because I co-sponsor many other Republicans' bills. In order to pass things on the House floor, we have to get 218 votes, and that means that we have to work together. I had asked her to co-sponsor my articles of impeachment against Joe Biden on the border, and she never responded and apparently refused to do so. Then when she introduced her own and forced them to the floor with a privilege resolution without even having the courage to talk to any other Republican in our conference before doing so, except Speaker McCarthy and apparently a few others, yeah, we had a tense conversation when she confronted me about things I had said about it. But this is unfortunate that this becomes public on the House floor.
In case you thought that either Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene would maybe be embarrassed that their fight spilled out onto the House floor last week and would maybe take the opportunity to, oh, I don't know, grow up, that's apparently not the case. Here, Greene is taking her grievances to cable news in the aftermath of this feud playing out in public.
Take your conversations to the back, off the floor. For what purpose does the gentlewoman... Order, please. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Florida, Mrs. Luna, seek recognition?
Now, for those who missed it, the feud arose when Boebert used a procedural maneuver to force a vote on Biden's impeachment, which angered Greene because for months, she's been trying to introduce resolutions to impeach Joe Biden too. And so clearly, she wasn't thrilled at the prospect of Boebert swooping in and not only copying her idea, but using a procedure to get it onto the floor faster. And so now, Greene and Boebert are engaged in a turf war over who will be able to use this legislation to grift their supporters, because Party of Lincoln, or something. Meanwhile, while these two are at each other's throats, it looks like even their own colleagues are recognizing what a toxic effort this is. Kevin McCarthy had come out and urged his conference to reject the effort. Even Byron Donalds, a House Freedom Caucus member, came out against it, telling the Daily Beast, "We do have a process of doing things. Impeachment is at such a high level that you know there should be some process for that." Yeah, a process, like waiting for a president to incite an insurrection against the US government and then do literally nothing about it. Kind of like that. And keep in mind, this will go nowhere. The vote that Boebert forced was simply sent back to the committees for consideration, where it'll die and where she knows it'll die, but she had no choice because the measure doesn't have the votes. Here's Congressman Jared Moskowitz in this week's interview explaining exactly that point.
My guess is and I don't know personally, my guess is they've probably had a little beef before. This is not something new. Marjorie, filed articles of impeachment against everybody. She has impeached half the Biden administration with what she's filed. And look, she's mad that, Lauren took it a step further and actually, tried to force a vote on it, which, by the way, they didn't. They didn't vote whether to impeach Joe Biden. They're now sending it to the Homeland Security Committee. Why? They don't have the votes. They don't have the votes to impeach Joe Biden. Why? Well, he didn't commit high crimes and misdemeanors. They don't have any evidence of that, right? So now they're going to send it to Homeland, and they're going to try to convince the American people for the next several months that Joe Biden should be impeached. I say, go ahead, impeach him. If you think that he committed a crime, impeach him. But they don't have any evidence. They got nothing. They're trying to tell the American people one day that he's slow, he's old, right? But now he's Tony Soprano leading the Biden crime family. And somehow Hunter is like Kaiser Sose. I mean, it's just absolutely lunacy. But this is what they got. This is what their viewers, their primary voters want to see. It's retribution. It's grievance. This is the entirety of their agenda. I don't know what they're for. I definitely know what they're against.
And so given the fact that this is a doomed effort from the start, that raises the question, why bother? And the answer is easy. First, so they can use it to promote their brands, because why else would Republicans get jobs intended to serve Americans when they could leverage those jobs to serve themselves? And second, fundraising. Whoever gets this resolution on the floor faster can then exploit that in an email pitch to supporters, saying something like, oh, I stood up for you and introduced articles of impeachment against the corrupt, evil, socialist, communist, Marxist Joe Biden. Help me continue to hold him accountable by donating to my campaign today, knowing full well that the impeachment resolution will go absolutely nowhere, but it's not about getting anything done, it is about selling a narrative to the suckers who trust them. Again, it was never about helping others, it is solely about helping themselves. And I'd also argue that not only will this go nowhere, but ultimately this will hurt the GOP. It'll show the country that they are deeply unserious people who can't be trusted with power, who will abuse the levers of government with no predicate whatsoever because they're just that desperate for the attention. And then, of course, if there's ever a legitimate reason to impeach Joe Biden, which there won't be, but just humor me here, well, it'll look like a sham regardless because they've been trying to impeach him for months now for the crime of waking up in the morning. And this goes without saying, but let's not pretend for a minute that these people are actually interested in the sanctity of impeachment anyway. This is a party that not only opposed Donald Trump's impeachment for actual high crimes and misdemeanors, including inciting an actual insurrection against the U.S. Capitol, but they continue to support him. The notion that they could rally behind Donald Trump amid his never-ending barrage of crimes while insisting that Joe Biden should be removed from office really is the perfect testament to what a circus all of this is. So look, will Joe Biden be impeached? No, I wouldn't worry about that for a single second. But I would argue that both Boebert and Greene are actually hurting themselves and their party a hell of a lot more than they could ever hurt Joe Biden. As far as Boebert's concerned, let's not forget, she won her last election by 0.16%. That's just over 500 votes, which isn't exactly a mandate to triple down on the crazy. And with regard to Greene, while she might be safer than Boebert electorally speaking, the argument could be made that she's actually an even bigger risk electorally. Maybe not to herself, but to her party as a whole. Because let's be clear, there is a downside to making a Looney Tune like her the face of that party. So she might be safe in her northern Georgia congressional district, but because of her, every moderate Republican occupying one of those 18 districts that Biden won in 2020 is going to have to contend with the fact that they are running in a party that is represented by someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So while they might try to pass themselves off as normal, their party has proven itself anything but. In the meantime, expect to see even more clownish behavior from Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and the rest of the GOP, because if nothing else, they're putting on full display their glaring inability to govern. You don't need to be a partisan to look at Congress and recognize that your tax dollars are being wasted. And considering we went from a Congress that passed the American Rescue Plan and the first gun safety bill in 30 years, and the CHIPS Act leading to an unprecedented explosion in American manufacturing and veterans' health care and lower prescription drug prices and climate funding, to this Congress, which is focused on, what, gas stoves and Hunter Biden? That should be all the proof you need that the last thing Republicans deserve is power. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on this screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.